I think he already knows who he is. Ladies and gentlemen, let me hear the applause for Pete Dillon-Trenchard!
Good evening. My name is Pete, although for those of you who are planning on Googling me later, my full name is Peter Charles Sampson Dillon-Trenchard. I recently bought one of those books which tells you, what your name actually means. Turns out my name means my parents really wanted me to get beaten up in the playground every day for 13 years. I was going to write some new jokes for tonight, but I've recently started playing World of Warcraft. Does anyone else? Of course you do. No, well done on managing to leave the house this evening. I know it can't have been easy. For those of you who don't know, World of Warcraft is a computer game in which otherwise normal people get to fulfill their lifelong dream of becoming a goblin. And it's basically crack for nerds. And the phrase, just one more quest, has taken on dark new significance for me. And I've even started lying to my friends. They'll ask me, what are you doing tonight? And I'll reply, well, I'm off to the Wormrest Temple in the realm of Darkspear, where I have an appointment with Alexstrasza, the Dragon Queen. I'm not really. As it is, I have an appointment in my bedroom, in the realm of my mum's house, with takeaway pizza and deep vein thrombosis. Not quite the same. But it's weird for me because, like most nerds, I've never been in a social situation where... Well, I've never been in a social situation. But, I've never been offered, actual illegal drugs. It's one of those rites of passage I sort of missed out on. Much like I never had the birds and the bees talk from my parents. Really could have done with that, to be honest. When I finally got round to losing my virginity a couple of weeks ago, my role in proceedings was mostly guesswork based on some of the more risque episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Incidentally, thanks for laughing when I said a couple of weeks ago, I did a gig earlier in the week, and at that point the audience just looked at me as if to say, that sounds plausible. Continue the story, Tubby. I never had the sex talk. I did, however, have the we don't mind if you're gay talk, which was slightly confusing to a 7-year-old. I don't know, I could kind of understand where my parents were coming from. I mean, for the longest time, the only 3 albums I owned were the soundtrack to the Doctor Who story Genesis of the Daleks, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Starlight Express. For those of you who don't know, it's a musical about trains. And Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, A Rock Adventure. Not that my parents thought there was anything particularly gay about Power Rangers in itself, despite the blatant homoerotic undertones. But whenever I was out playing with my friends, I would invariably be the Pink Ranger. Not my fault though, we were a group of 5 boys, I was the only one with breasts. Because, I have always been a tubby kid. My parents used to tell me, don't worry, it's just puppy fat. It wasn't just puppy fat. Not unless that puppy was actually James Corden in disguise. But it's not like I've done much to disprove my parents' theories. I wasn't bringing lots of girls home, but that's because I've discovered that when it comes to dating, being a geek does narrow my options in what was already quite a small demographic. It turns not many girls get turned on by an encyclopedic knowledge of Star Trek Voyager. I've learned from bitter experience that chapped up lines like, hey babe, I want to be flung into your Delta Quadrant. Very rarely work in practice. And the problem is that the kind of girls that might work on really tend not to be the kind of girls who should be allowed any kind of human contact ever, let alone the chance to procreate. You ask, when they say they like Doctor Who, do they mean they like to snuggle up to a Tom Baker classic? Or do they mean they'd quite like to sexually assault David Tennant? Usually the latter, in my experience. The search for someone continues, and if there is anyone in the audience tonight who's thinking, I'd like a piece of that, and I don't blame you, I am incredibly single. All I ask is that you write me a 2,000-word essay on why Jean-Luc Picard was the best captain of the Starship Enterprise. Either that, or just suggest to me that at some point in proceedings I might get to see part of your bra. I know it's good for me. You've been great, guys.
Mr. Dillon-Trenchard, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Pete, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you a little piece of advice, because you suggested that your knowledge of Star Trek Voyager doesn't carry you very far. You need to transfer to Doctor Who. You mentioned Genesis of the Daleks there, you see. 1978 classic with Tom Baker, the episode where he held two wires and he could have destroyed the Daleks at their birth, but he realised that good can come from even the most evil sooner or later. And I've been getting pussy for years. So what you need to do is shift from Voyager to Doctor Who, okay? If you can tell those girls about the Zygons, Jesus Christ, you can hear the dripping from the next ring.